Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Hello, welcome to The View, Voices of Unitarian Universalism. My name is Aisha Hauser. My pronouns are she and her, and I have the honor of being part of the lead ministry team of the Church of the Larger Fellowship. I am a brown woman with wild curly hair, and today wearing a keffiyeh, which I wear every week, have been for, that says Palestine, and please end this horrific fucking genocide. We are so excited to have our second in a two-part series of interviewing and having the folks running for UUA Moderator on The View. We had Natasha Walker a few weeks ago, and today we have Bill Young and Reverend Kimberly Quinn-Johnson. However, before we introduce our esteemed guest, I want to hand this over to Dante. How are you? Where are you? It's raining here. It's Seattle. Where are we going? Dante, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I am Dante Hilliard. I have the honor and privilege of serving as a worship learning fellow at the Church of the Larger Fellowship. I'm a pleasantly plump, cafe au lait, skin-toned black man with shoulder-length dreadlocks, sort of reddish brown, and I wear dark-framed glasses, and I am here in the land of the Piscataway people, Baltimore, Maryland, USA, and we've been having what I would call Midwestern Halloween weather, which is, if you're from the Midwest, you know what that is. We had more wet and cold Halloweens than non. So you had on your little outfit with the plastic outfit and the plastic mask and a raincoat and galoshes. and you were wet and cold. And it's very fallish. But I'm not going to complain because I don't need extreme heat. So, Reverend Michael, how are you?
Greetings, beloved. Michael Tino here, joining you from Peekskill, New York, the land of the Quechua, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape peoples, just north of New York City. I am a fat, white, middle-aged, almost bald person with aqua glasses and a vibrantly floral print shirt on today. It is cold and rainy and dreary here in Peekskill. Like March needs to come get its weather back and give me almost June because my tomato plants, I put my tomato plants out in the garden and they were this big and now they're this big. And like, they're just like, I look out at them and they're like, please give me hot weather. Please, please. These poor little tomato plants. And I really like tomatoes fresh from the garden. So it's not really a complaint, except that if it stays this cool, swimming in the city pool will be unpleasant, and tomato plants will not grow. So that's what's up with me.
Did I say I was in the land of the Coast Salish people? Maybe. I should say that. I'm saying it now. So I do want to, real quick, before we jump into you stuff. So Jomo Luo, who lives in Seattle, one of the things she's doing, and I want to offer this to those of you listeners and watchers, wherever you are, is once a month, she is inviting people into community space. So part of it, she makes it public, like, hey, gather. And the first one was last month, or at least the first one I got to. And we talked about what does an abolitionist world look like. So that was the topic for last month. And she said that people over the country are asking her to do it there. And she said, I live here. So the invitation is you do it in your spaces. And our UU congregations, I think, would be beautiful places for folks to have community time. So I just wanted community opportunities for people to gather. Because it's so overwhelming what's going on that I try to be just informed enough, but I just can't listen to the news anymore. I can't. So how about you all?
Wait, are you asking us to introduce ourselves?
You know what?
Sure.
Yes, sure. Reverend Quinn-Johnson. Why don't we start there? I thought we were going to do more roundup. I love this. Kimberly and I are very close friends, so this works. So we're good. Go ahead, Reverend Kimberly.
Start spouting my opinion, and people have no idea who I am, which is how I sometimes like to roll.
No, introduce yourself. That's better.
So I am the Reverend Kimberly Quinn-Johnson. I'm on the east end of Long Island. I have brown skin and salt and pepper hair. I'm wearing red glasses and hoop earrings and my youth chalice. What else? So I will say weather-wise, it is rainy here. It is cool, but I also heard a weather report to expect unusually hot weather in the Northeast this summer. So, like, be careful.
So you tell me my tomato plants will get what they want, even if it's not what I want.
And the pool will be crowded.
There we go. Okay, I like the crowded pool.
Bill,
well, you do have dehydrated tomatoes.
Yes. Bill, tell us where you are, who you are, and we will go from there and have a good conversation.
All right, I am Bill Young, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am a white man wearing glasses and a checkered shirt, and I have gray hair and an indistinct background in the room that I am in. I am in far western Massachusetts, in Berkshire County, about 8 miles from the border with upstate New York. And today it's cloudy and a little bit chilly here. Last week I was up in the Adirondacks in upstate New York and doing some hiking with our dogs, and it snowed. So that was fun.
Wow, that's all over the place. So are you near Great Barrington, Bill?
Yeah, I'm between Great Barrington and Lee.
'Cause my mother-in-law used to live in Austerlitz, so I was in that area a lot when I was still married and lived in New Jersey. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm right on the border between Lee and Stockbridge.
Yeah.
Right
I
here.
know exactly where you are.
And
Very nice.
My congregation is in Great Barrington.
Nice. So let's jump in. We'd love to know from the two of you what made you decide to run, what made you decide to run together. I definitely think that would be cool to start there. Kimberly.
Who wants to start?
Oh, I was totally going to let Bill start because you actually, I think, got this ball rolling.
I did. And that was back in January of 2024. So we spent the time talking from January 2024 up until the time when we had to commit to doing this, which was summer 2024. So we took a while to do it. And why?
Wait, can I jump in to say, when
Go.
you first called me in January, I honestly thought that, and I think I knew it was about Moderator, and I thought that you were calling to ask me if I would consider running. And I was like already prepared to be like, absolutely not. But then when you suggested running with you, I was like, oh, well, wait a minute now. I think I might actually really consider this, because it's an entirely different proposition to run with a partner and somebody who I trust and who I think is so like skilled at this.
Yeah, so similarly, I would not have done this by myself. And one, I guess there are a number of reasons. Kimberly and I worked together before on the appointments committee from 2017 to 2020, and then had run into one another in between on some things. And we both have deep UU roots, but from different places. And so it felt at the time that it was a good complementary sort of team that we could be. And I guess that period between January of last year and summertime was us figuring out if we actually wanted to do it together. And so we spent that time deciding, and ultimately did.
I'm happy for us, because I was thrilled, and actually, and we love. I will say, we said this to Natasha as well. What's beautiful about this campaign is how respectful it is. It is genuinely a thoughtful, well done campaign. The forum, like everybody's just there's so much respect. And Natasha, and that's a breath of fresh air because. UUism has seen not so friendly campaigns in many years past. And so it is really beautiful to have that. What was there anything you don't have to answer this, but I would be curious. Was there something that was like a tension point where you both where one or the other had to talk? Were there any tension points about maybe things you didn't agree on?
I don't think that we have run into the thing that we don't agree on. So, because here's the thing, our values are really aligned. And also, I think our way of working is really aligned. So we will probably disagree on small things. We might disagree on like a process. We might even actually disagree on a desired outcome. But because the values are aligned, it feels more generative than a disagreement that will shut things down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and no, we haven't run into that yet. Always possible that we will. But what I have valued during this period of time, during the campaign and before the campaign, is learning some things from Kimberly that I wouldn't have experienced in the same way or as much. And so I think we each have some of that. So I think if we approach this more from a what are the strengths that we can gain by being a duo, rather than focusing on possible disagreements and specific things, I think that will take us a long way.
So I have kind of like a two-part question for each of you. Part one is, what if you are elected? What is the part of this job that you are looking forward to the most? And part two is, what is the part of this job that you are really hoping your partner will take on?
Oh, I like that.
I got really
This side.
Thank you, Reverend Michael, for having my back.
Wait. Okay, I'm gonna give my answer because I also trust that Bill's gonna give a better answer than me. So the thing that is probably not mine to do, which I trust that Bill will do, and there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe I should. It's like, it is probably, I am not the best person to deal with people in our association, in our community, who feel as if the association is being taken over by too many mouthy people of color. That's just not me. There are lots of people out there who have that feeling. There's like the little devil part of me that's like, but I want to talk to them. But actually, it's not helpful. So
It's certainly not going to disabuse them of their notions.
yes. So that's probably gonna be Bill's portfolio. I don't know. What am I? At the same time, though, I think the thing I'm really looking forward to is I think I will get to just be in conversation with lots and lots of UUs all across the country.
Mhm.
I love that. I love hearing how people are doing. How it's like how people are doing is in, are you doing well? Are you doing that? But also how people are doing the thing that is Unitarian Universalism.
Mhm.
I get so many different ideas for what I can do at home by hearing what other people are doing. And I also think that I'm a really good problem solver. So I'm excited at the opportunity to help do some of that problem solving.
Nice. Bill?
So I'll mention first something that I want to be involved in, but I suspect that Kimberly will be more likely to be taking the lead between us, is a whole variety of really important issues related to religious professionals. And I think that some of those issues are hard, and some of them are not going to be changed or solved, I should say, real quick. They're multi-year sort of efforts, I suspect. And so it's not that I want to avoid it, but I suspect that Kimberly will be in a better position to take the lead. I'll mention two things about that I'm really looking forward to. One is, and this might sound funny to some of you, but a whole variety of governance things. Because I think that we're at a point in time where we have, again, a number of multi-year things going on in how we do governance, how GA happens, how we, over a number of years, rewrite bylaws. In other words, how we prepare our association in that respect for its future. So that's the general governance umbrella. And the other one I'll mention, because it's something I've been advocating for and working on for a while, is working on and cultivating our current and future lay leadership. Because I think it's an area which is immensely important for a variety of reasons. It's an area where we have some gaps, I think, gaps within our congregations, among congregations and communities, and at the association level. And so I see this as a really build out period, so to speak, over the coming years as it relates to lay leadership. So that's something I want to admit it. It's kind of top of mind.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you like governance. It's a good quality in someone
Somebody
learning
has
to be
to.
chief governance officer. Dante, I think you have a question.
Yes, I'm glad you like governance too. As a person who did organizational change work for a really long time, I always say if your governance body is not on board, just stop. Like I'm sick of wasting my energy. If the governance body and the executive office is not on board, everybody else is wasting their time. So yes, I believe governance is really important. But I kind of want to ask a non-governance related question. I'm sort of the newbie. I've been a UU for less than 10 years now. What brought you to Unitarian Universalism, and why do you stay?
This question.
We can hear you, Kimberly.
Do you want to go first, Kimberly, in this one?
She does not want to go first.
I mean, because it's long. I'm gonna try and shorten it. The like midish answer is so in the 90s, like in the 20th century.
Yes.
I was organizing, like union organizing, and I was like very, very stressed out. And so started going to church after like being an avowed non-religious person. But Christianity didn't fit, and I read an article in Essence magazine written by the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNabb. And she had been doing her internship at the congregation in Montclair. And I happened to be living in Montclair, New Jersey at the time. And it just described, I had never heard of Unitarianism. It described this religion that was committed to justice, where you could ask questions. And so I thought, and also I had never, like, I'm in my 20s, and I think had never seen a Black woman minister. It was just like not a thing. And so I was intrigued by all of it. And I was living in town and could walk there and thought, well, this is like a thing. By the time I actually made it there, she was no longer there, but I fell in love with the congregation. I fell in love with the faith. I do suspect if I had been somewhere else and found the local Unitarian church, I don't know that it would have stuck the way that it did. But it did stick. And so I'm grateful for that. And why I stay, because I was going to say, because where else would I go? There are plenty of things that I could do with my time. Because I believe in the promise of what's possible, right? When it's like, well, it is similar to why I stay in this country. The promise of what's possible, right? When we live into who we say we are, is pretty amazing. And I get to be a part of living into that. And so I do that.
Thanks, Kimberly. Hey, Bill, how about you?
Well, I'll also try to give you the mid response, because it could go on for a long time. So I grew up in Chicago. I was born and raised there until I was a young adult. And I grew up in a Polish Catholic neighborhood in Chicago. And Polish and Catholic are synonymous in those neighborhoods. So I grew up in a thoroughly religious setting and went to Catholic schools, went to a Jesuit Catholic high school. And it was there, actually, that I started thinking differently. And it's there that with the Jesuits, I was introduced to liberation theology. And so liberation theology stuck with me, even though after I went to college, I went to Northwestern. I did not, but I started visiting the Evanston congregation and spent some time there as a college student. And then as a young adult, I attended the Oak Park congregation a bit. And then when I was 25 years old, I moved to Connecticut and joined a congregation there. And, I'm obviously not a young adult anymore, but I started my UU journey as a young adult. And it was a congregation where I was able to get involved in all sorts of things. And that really stuck with me. And then with a couple of moves, I moved to a couple other congregations. But I wanted to mention that young adult thing. That was the glue, I think, on your question about what kept me.
Mhm.
That was part of it, actually, was that experience as a young adult. And since then, I've been involved in, I'm one of those folks who's been involved in every one of the lay leadership roles in congregations that you could do. So that's another thing that kept me. And then I had the opportunity to get involved in our district when the district was there, and the Northeast Leadership School. And so those things collectively kind of brought me to the point of saying this is really my home. And so I had a lot of different UU touch points. And it's that sum total, I think, of those things that have kept me.
Thank y'all for that response, because I think the governing component is important, but I think it's important for people to know what it lies at the heart of your commitment to the tradition, right? Because there are a lot of people who have technical skills of leadership. You can be a technically proficient leader, but if you don't have the heart, the vision, the love for it, yeah, it could be really bumpy. Because it's going to be bumpy even with those things, but it's going to be really bumpy without. So thank y'all for responding to that.
Yeah.
So I have a question about, I'm trying to figure out how to, piece is crucial. It is the governing body of the association. The thing that is also potentially a decision you can make or inspire or lead or suggest to the board are you will have opportunities to make statements or not on world events. And there was, I don't think it's controversial to say the board never made a statement about Gaza and about genocide. And that is, the UUA did. So, I shared that. But if we are a faith that centers the inherent worth and dignity of every person, love at the center, liberation, it is puzzling to me that our governing board, because of not wanting to hurt people's feelings, I don't know, has not come out with its own statement saying we are, this is a genocide. We need to be against this. So I'm curious, and I know this is thorny, and I would respect both of you for saying you want to table this, but that is what's on my heart, as you could see.
I might defer a little to Bill, who is currently on the board. I have thoughts, but I also don't want to second guess a decision that has been made. So I'll start there. I don't really have comments on why the board has or has not done what it's done.
Well, I'll take a shot at it, Aisha. Maybe a little more generally, not about that specific issue, but about
Fair.
the board taking stands on issues. And I guess my most direct answer about that is I think it needs some sorting out. And I'll tell you why. I think that how and who from the association communicates externally is something that could use some additional work. And I'll be more specific, because one of the questions that comes up is, and this is a more general board and staff sort of question, is when it comes to speaking in the public square, so to speak, who takes the lead on that?
That's fair.
And I think that to me is the issue. I don't mean that as a cop-out, though, because I don't mean to say that isn't something that the board couldn't speak on too, in appropriate coordination with staff. But I do think, and I bring that up because I think there's some tenderness to that question historically, between board and moderator leadership and staff leadership. So I do think that on that question of communication, now that doesn't mean that something can't certainly be done jointly, right, by the board and by the president, so that sort of thing. But I wanted to admit that I think that is a kind of murky area that we need to work on. And that has not been clear. And I think generally there's been some reluctance to do things separately that way. Does that help a little?
It helps a lot. I think what I want to, and this isn't a question, I think one of the opportunities right now for Unitarian Universalism there is to make the space for leaning into the challenges of our time. And that includes, I mean, to your point, Bill, I appreciate your answer, and it makes sense. And some version of that is happening in congregations and UU congregations all over the country, right? Where even if I post something on the closed Loretta Facebook page, or somebody else posts something saying genocide or Jewish, there's like controversy because there hasn't been a space of, if this was any other groups of people, this would be clear what's happening. It's because there is, we haven't made the space for a nuanced clarity of what does it mean to put love at the center and fight for liberation. Here's an example I'll give. During the white supremacy teach-in in 2017, one of the things that a group of, I'm going to say mostly, white folks, but I mean, because Black and brown folks, for the most part, we were already there. White feelings can't matter more than Black lives. That was like, I have a bumper sticker. I have, there are mugs, T-shirts. Black feelings are worth more than Black lives are worth more than white feelings. That doesn't translate. That isn't translating in our spaces when it comes to Palestinian lives. And so we don't have to, this issue is very alive right now. So, so I think the bigger thing is to say, it is hard to be brave because it's actually easy to not talk about it. That's easier to talk, right? To say, this is too complicated. It's really not complicated. The part that's complicated is when I first became a UU way back, I had first visited last century a UU church, but joined early this century. And I remember a white minister said to me, I never preach about Israel and Palestine. And I was like, why? And they're like, it's a no-win. I can't. And for years, that's what I heard. I won't preach on it. I won't preach on it. So there's never been the groundwork to talk about this. And so I think that, to your point, Bill, and I appreciate it, there will be room for, because we've got fascism. It's here. It's been here, but now it's affecting white people. So now more people are paying attention. So there's going to be times where we're going to continue to be tested, and not just about Israel and Palestine. And so having courage and bravery as an institution and a religion and a denomination, the more we could lean into how we do that and remain as whole as we can, I think is important. Does that make sense?
Well, let me just make one more comment, because yes, that makes total sense to me. And none of you yet have asked what Kimberly or I am worried about. But one of the things that makes me worried, thinking forward over the next 6 years, is that we are in this nation, I believe, a very tough time. And up till 2028, at least, we've got the current federal administration. And I foresee things being hard. And I foresee our association needing to be engaged in that. And so, yeah, that to me is worrisome, and I think something that I feel called to be involved in.
I mean, I do think probably all the time, where we plant ourselves in hard times. So I have 3 things in my head that are related, and I hope that they will seem related when I say them. I had a conversation last night with a friend of mine who is on the board of a human rights committee, and she's going to have a conversation with the president of that board about what's happening in Gaza. And what she asked me is, what are you all doing? And I wish that I had a stronger thing. I pointed her to the statements. I told her that we're having conversations. And I wish that I was able to guide her to something that was more forceful. So there's that. When I shared, this was, back in February, when I shared the UUA statement, the statement from the president and the president's office about Gaza, to our local community here, I had lots of conversation with the board of our congregation, because I didn't run it past the board of the congregation. And the concern that was articulated, though I don't think it was the only concern that was there, was, what about the people that this statement turns away? My response to that was, what about the people who are turned away by us not having a response? I think in this moment, I am concerned about the people who are turned away by a lack of our ability. And this is about Gaza, and it's also about a whole stream of things. Our ability to really stand strongly behind what it is that we say we believe in. This is about what's happening in Gaza. This is about what's happening in Sudan, which nobody is talking about, right? This is about what's happening in Ukraine. It's about the trans children. It's about what's happening to federal workers. It's about our ability to articulate and really lean into who it is that we say we are and what it is that we believe in. I've been here on the east end of Long Island for about 10 years. An early conversation that I had out here, I don't even remember what had happened. I think maybe earthquakes in Haiti or something. I was new. I didn't know many people in the community, but people came to me and asked if we were doing anything. And what the particular conversation I'm remembering, the woman said, I just figured if anybody out here is doing anything, it would be the UUs. I want that to actually be true, right? I want us to be a place where people who are not actually connected but want to be know that they will be able to connect and do something.
So I wonder if, and Bill, I completely appreciate as a former board member and as a former UUA staff member, I completely appreciate the nuance that we have charged the president of the UUA with being our public spiritual leader, and have given the staff permission to speak based on the statements that the General Assemblies have made, right? I wonder if there's a role that the board can take on. I'm thinking out loud right now. as a former board member, in having these conversations with our congregations, right? Like, not the external piece, but like, we as your board want to have these conversations with you, our congregations, to build the capacity to take the stand in your community, to build the capacity for moral leadership in all of our communities, and all of the ways that we're going to need to have moral leadership.
Well, I can think of two things on that. One is, I think, yes, that so much of the work that is being done now is being done by our congregations and communities in their local places, and they need the support of the association in that. And it can come from the board and it can come from other places. But I do think it's important that it is understood that the board and other parts of the association are behind them and are supporting them, and are trying to find ways to give them some of the capacities and tools that they need to do that work, because that's where most of the work will be done. Day in and day out, it won't be done by the board. So I think, yes, that's important to figure that out. The second part, which I'll just, it wasn't precisely your question, but I do think that there is a role for increased board communication from the perspective that you brought up, the topic you brought up, but on other ones too. So I do think figuring out how the board best communicates with member congregations is an important thing.
So, I'm the seminarian on the panel, and the person sort of working through processes of religious leadership inside of our tradition. So I feel that I would be remiss to not ask a question about pathways to leadership and our relationship with our two remaining Unitarian Universalist seminaries. I hear so much anxiety and angst from my colleagues who are either at Meadville or Star King about preparation, about curriculum, about, it feels like our institutions are sort of becoming less Unitarian in leadership and training, or less specifically Unitarian Universalist. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And about the pathways to ministry, right? We just had this big meeting in Boston around widening pathways. So I just wondered if y'all have thoughts or messages for those of us who are in these pathways to leadership I'm particularly and I don't know if we have a lot of clarity about how our two institutions fit into all of that. So just wondering if you had thoughts or reflections on that.
I'm curious about, can you say a little more about when you say less Unitarian or less Unitarian Universalist?
So, okay, so I'll say this. So I'm at Meadville, and our new religious education professor is not only a person who's not a Unitarian Universalist, but doesn't even come from like something adjacent. And religious education in Unitarian Universalism is a very specific, very nuanced. I have never seen anything like it in any other tradition. Maybe Catholicism is the only tradition that I think has this sort of very intensive religious, in my experience, like around religious education. So when we're in a small institution, there's only one person in religious education. And this is where Unitarians are coming to be trained and developed for ministry in Unitarian Universal situations. But your professor doesn't come out of that tradition or something similar. There's people are kind of concerned.
And the new president of Star King is not a UU. I mean, maybe a lovely, wonderful human being. I'm sure these people are all wonderful, but
yeah, like, and so it's not about the people. It's about, like, we only have two institutions left. If we can't get it here, where are we going to get it? How are we going to make it through the MFC? How are we going to be prepared?
As we swivel our heads to the co-chair of the MFC. So yeah, Bill's like, yep. Bill's like,
you take this one, Kimberly.
Y'all queued that up very nicely. So I have many. Okay, so one thing I will say, I'm just gonna like stream all of my things. I made a particular choice to go to a UU seminary because I wanted to have. I went to Meadville Lombard. I wanted to have more grounding in the institution. So that was a choice that I made, and that was the reason. I recognize and I really value having UU institutions and to do that training. I also, again, having had no role in how we're like choosing leadership and staff, want to leave open, right, this space for what is gained from perspectives that are new and different, right? So I know that when we worked on the appointments committee, sometimes it felt constrained by needing to find leadership that was already committed to Unitarian, that had already demonstrated a commitment to Unitarian Universalism, right? Because we are very small. So there is a possibility that there are people who are in alignment with our faith, right? Who have skills and knowledge and talent and perspective to add to our faith who aren't here yet. Hopefully there is a big space.
It's a hell of a way to recruit someone to our faith, like hiring them as a seminary president. Just or the endowed chair of religious education. But please go on. I appreciate that perspective, and I'm sorry. I just had to. That had to come out of my mouth, and I don't.
No, I appreciate like an assist. I hear you co-signing what I'm saying because I do.
All in favor of evangelism in all of the forms that it takes.
And also, though, but yes, right. I mean, I recognize the concern. I was once, so we often hire in congregations religious educators who are not yet Unitarian Universalists because of the pools that we're working with. At the same time, I had a conversation with a person who worked for a short time as a religious educator here, who was concerned that part of my goal for the program was to have the children develop a Unitarian Universalist identity, because we should not be indoctrinating the children. So I do understand the concern for a Unitarian Universalist identity and what that is, and being able to articulate it and communicate it and having this tradition. I think I just want to be recognizing I want to recognize where we have constraints, where we have small pools, the possibility that opening things up, we can still maintain that identity. And also it requires, right, that we don't just take for granted that because we put UU name, that UU identity continues to sort of flow through. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be clear about what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. And it's not just people, it's not only people who are in these positions of recognized leadership. I guess that's like my
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add just a couple things. I don't feel knowledgeable enough to comment in detail about your question, but I do want to say I really do think, with some of the work that's already started and more to come, this set of issues about religious professionals is going to be a real priority for the association over not the next year, but the next number of years, as in parallel, some of the pressures and needs and options within congregations are themselves moving targets.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that I don't have any particular answers, but I think that this set of issues that we're finding our way into right here probably will get more and more detailed and organized attention over the next few years than it has for a while, along with a number of senses of urgency about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have 8 minutes left. I was thinking we could talk about our $1.1 billion endowments and power in 8 minutes.
wait, who has a 1.1? Do we have a 1.1 billion?
All of the endowments collectively in Unitarian Universalist spaces, congregations that are associated with the UUA. I know, granted, half of that is from one congregation, but still, it is 1.1 billion. Elon Musk bought this presidency for 227 million. So had we had imagination, as one of my friends put it, the stupid UUs could have bought the presidency and we'd have healthcare and universal preschool and not have vaccines taken away from us. I digress. So we have collectively.
Do you digress?
I don't digress. We collectively are an oligarch. We are what, 130,000 people that claim Unitarian Universalism, and we have among us collectively $1.1 billion. What? And there's no question. I just need to say that because a lot of people are going to be watching this episode for you. We need to be generous.
The question is, how does the board exert moral leadership given that fund?
Thank you, Michael.
The funds that are being held. Yeah, I guess that's the question, right? Because we're asking people who are running for a specific job, right? And it's not like it's not fair to you to say, like, please control all of Unitarian Universalism in exactly the way that Aisha wants it controlled, which would be lovely. Let me tell you, I would be in favor of it. I wouldn't be her co-minister if I wasn't.
This is how rumors start. I don't want to control it. I want to inspire people to be more generous so we can have universal healthcare. I don't want to control anything. But thank you, Michael. I like your framing. This is why we're collaborative leaders.
So yay for collaborative leadership. I'm just gonna say. So here's what I will say, because I'm new to the board, not actually yet on the board. I'm not going to speak for the board, but I was until moving forward with this campaign on the board of the UU Service Committee. And I'm really proud of the work that we have done and are doing there, really thinking about how we're using our resources, right, for liberation that is in alignment with our values and also with our mission. But thinking about how we are not hoarding resources, but how we are reframing using our resources in the world. So the UUSC has done what I think is some really inspiring work around rethinking how we're using. I'm saying we. I wish it was still we. Rethinking how we are using our. There's a term that I want to use other than endowment. Our saved
Resources?
our reserves, or our long-term savings. So I'm not answering your question necessarily, but some of the thinking, some of my thinking around that, that I'm taking from this experience with the service committee is balancing sort of our current response. So how we're using resources, balancing our current responsibilities, right? So for example, if I use the service committee as an example, I hope that they are not entirely annoyed by me using them as an example. We could say that our partner model could dictate that we give all of our money away to partners. But we also actually have responsibility to staff, right? And there are also ways that we can use the money, not better than our partners, but differently than our partners. And actually, in some cases, like there are things that we could do that our partners couldn't, right? So we could give all the money away, and that is probably not the best thing to do in alignment with our mission and our goals. So I think, like, when I'm thinking about how we're using resources, I am thinking about how we're moving money into the world, but I'm also thinking about how we're using our money to support what are our mission, and how is our mission in alignment with our values. I'm not like a give all the money away person, but I am, let's really think about how we're using our money, not just holding on to it for some indefinite future, but also expecting that we will have a future.
And I can add just a couple of quick things. There isn't time to go into detail about investment committee policy stuff, which is important and lies at the core of some of this. But one of the things I do see as a real opportunity is we think about the next few years is how we can link some of our endowment and our investment policy to the climate justice work that we are doing. And that isn't a one simple answer sort of thing. And I think it will evolve. But over this last year, some of that work has started. And so I just wanted to raise that one up, because I think that when we think about where we can prioritize some of what we do with what we have, the climate justice work over the next few years is one of those places.
Excellent. I appreciate that. We have 1 minute left. Is there anything we have in 60 seconds that we haven't brought up? This is really great. I appreciate you all. But yeah, you got 60 seconds. Kimberly, Bill, anything that was
support
left
youth
unsaid?
Ministry with our financial and also our human resources and our heart and spirit resources. That's like a whole nother conversation about how we need to invest in youth ministry. Have us back.
Listen,
If you are elected, we will definitely have you back as many times as you'd like to come back. If you're not, have you back.
Literally.
Never.
Bill, any last one?
The only other thing I'll mention that we didn't talk about very much is I think that we're at a point where some multi-year planning is appropriate for the association. Some of that started at the financial level, but I think meshing that with the priorities of the association over the next few years is important, and how to now mesh those with the shared values.
Beautiful. Thank you. This was great. I appreciate you both so much. And we're going to be in Baltimore in a couple of weeks.
Where can people learn more about your campaign?
Learn about our campaign at www.electkimberlyandbill.com.
.org.
.org.
And we're
it's in the
Facebook
the
too.
chat.
Yes,
But you will find that on the website.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Special
Great
thanks
show.
to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.